So, hello everyone. So,
Yeah.
I'm Cassie. I'm here with my colleague Rachel to talk about how we designed and delivered a university-wide in-sessional AI literacy workshop series at the University of Manchester. Um, we will divide our talk into five parts. So, I will talk about course rationale and course design, and then I will share with you student handout from one of our workshops. Then Rachel will talk you through the feedback from students and teachers, as well as our evaluation. So let's start with course rationale. So why did we decide to create this course? So last year, GISC came to us and did a lot of focus groups with our students. They wrote up a report in which one of the findings is that our students want hands-on workshops on how to prompt, and they want guidance on when and when not to use AI. Another reason for this course is that AI literacy is becoming a key graduate attribute. If you're looking at some of the recent job ads in EAP, some employers are expecting EAP tutors to have AI literacy skills. And finally, a lot of research has shown that AI literacy instructions can promote students' ethical and critical use of AI. Let's move on to how we design the course. Our at the University Centre for Academic English, we run in-sessional classes to all students at the University of Manchester. Our remit is international students, but yeah, all the classes are open to all students because the in-sessional workshops they are run on the voluntary on optional basis, so we don't have any assessment. What we did was we had a full 90-minute on-campus workshops. The outline of these four workshops were adapted from one et al. 2025, and was mapped to the writing process. So you can see that in session one, we looked at the first steps of the writing process, so how an AI can support brainstorming and creating outlines. In session two, we looked at finding sources with AI. Session three, we focused on revising and editing with AI. And in session four, we discussed a lot of ethical issues of AI use in academic writing, in oral assessment, exam revision, and in everyday life. In terms of what we included prompting strategies and prompting practice with the university's adopted AI tool, which is Copilot, Microsoft Copilot. We also introduced other tools, but we didn't ask students to sign up. Instead, we demonstrated how to use them in the class. We also had a lot of activities in which students had to evaluate AI outputs, things like AI generated outlines, sources that AI found, AI feedback. We had a lot of open discussions on ethical issues, and we made a lot of references to the university's AI guidance, however vague it might be. We didn't include Gen AI inner workings, how it's trained and stuff, simply because this can be quite technical and we don't really have time for it. We touched on translation and paraphrasing very briefly. So, for example, we had scenarios like, a student wrote in their first language, then had AI translate that into English and submitted it to the University of Manchester. Is that okay? What do you think? But we don't really go to depth with translation and paraphrasing because these two areas are quite contentious, and the university guidance is not very clear about what can and cannot be done when it comes to these things. And finally, we didn't project our belief of what we think is acceptable or unacceptable use of Gen AI. We refer students to the university guidelines, also the schools, departments, guidance. But we try to get students to develop their own ethical framework. Right now, I will go through a student handout that we used with students in session 3 about revising and editing with AI. Okay, can you see the handout, everyone? Yeah, the handout. Yeah, okay, great. For this session, we started with a discussion on students' experience of using AI to revise and edit their writing. After that, we showed them a prompt that can be used to ask AI for feedback. So it's quite a long prompt, but we got students to analyze this prompt, focusing on this bit here, rather than giving me the answers. Please guide me to doing so for myself, because we wanted students to start thinking about ownership and voice. And then you can see in this prompt, students have to upload their own work to Gen AI. So that is linked to the next task, in which we ask students, what do you think happens to your text after you have uploaded it to Gen AI? Who owns it? And how about when you upload things such as assessment brief, lecture notes, feedback, or tutor feedback to Gen AI tools? So we want students to start thinking about issues related to copyright. Following up on that, in task 4, we referred to the university's guidelines, which state that submitting information to AI can be quite problematic, and so is submitting copyrighted materials. Then we showed students what Copilot, the university's adopted AI tool, says about how user data is handled. So Copilot claims to not share user data with a third party, not to use user data to train itself, right? And then screenshot from ChatGPT. So you can see here, improve the model for everyone, allow your content to be used to train our models. And the default option in ChatGPT is on. So based on this pieces of information, we got students to think and discuss risks of uploading their work and others' work to Gen AI, and also consider steps that they can take to reduce this risk, but also getting some support from the tools. And then the following tasks will be more hands-on, so students can actually use AI if they want to. So we gave students a paragraph, and we made it clear that it was written by a tutor to imitate student style, with the permission to upload to Gen AI. We gave students some criteria that will be used to assess the paragraph, and we got students to evaluate the draft without Gen AI using this criteria first. So they get to do their own evaluation. Okay, so that's the paragraph. After that, we ask students to ask Gen AI for feedback, and then compare AI feedback with their own evaluation. So for them to compare and decide how useful AI feedback can be. And then in the last task, it was just a wrap up to get students to reflect and consider how they should use AI in revising and editing academic writing from now on. Okay. So that is an example of a workshop that we had. Now Rachel will continue with student and teacher feedback.
Thanks, Cassie. Are you able to maximize the slide again? Or is it just, oh, great. Maybe my screen was a bit slow. So yeah, we asked all students who attended our workshops to complete a survey towards the end of the workshops. And as you can see on the screen, the feedback was very encouraging, that all of the students found the workshops useful, and they all felt that it made them more confident in using generative AI themselves and making decisions about how they do that. On the next slide, we've got just a couple of quotations from student feedback. So we also asked them more specifically, what did they find most useful? A lot of students listed specific tools that they just hadn't been aware of that were out there, and said they'd find it really useful to learn about those tools and to have a bit of a play around with them themselves. The second quote you can see is a bit longer on the screen, very positive sort of, that I think the overwhelming response was, a lot of the things we discussed, students said, well, I never thought of that before. And, I never really thought about what goes on when I use AI, or I never thought about how I could use it in that way. And a lot of students commented particularly on the ethical side of things, like intellectual property, and the decisions about what's going in and where is it going. They just hadn't really considered before and now they've thought a bit more about that as they were using it. So if you can go, thanks, Cassie. So we also asked students what they would change. Is there anything that they think we should change in the workshops? Some of these are things that we think we probably can't act on. So for example, some of them were related to students wanting very specific policies or very specific guidelines, and our remit is within the whole university, and within which there are different departments who have different policies and different guidelines. So a lot of our teaching is to point students towards those guidelines and to just help them make informed decisions in line with those. The other things that students commented about were they wanted more worked examples, specific examples of what's wrong or what's bad use of AI, and a little bit more about what's going on when we use AI. So how does it work? What's happening and behind the scenes with AI. We also asked, so we had some conversations with academics about the courses they were teaching. And just on the screen are two quotes which I think represent the spectrum of views that we've encountered. There was one program director who was very enthusiastic, yet would love to embed this to make all our students attend it, make it compulsory for everyone. And there was another that very politely, very unenthusiastically said, thank you, I'll think about it. Yeah, maybe next year. And I think this represents the spectrum of views across the university, but also even within our teaching team. And we found that some of the feedback from teachers, so colleagues who are teaching on this course, Cassie and I both taught it, and a few other colleagues were involved in piloting it as well. And again, there was some feedback of, oh, this is brilliant, it's really helpful conversations that it's sparking with students, and others had valid concerns about, what are students doing with the things we tell them, how are we making sure that we're keeping up to date with guidelines that are constantly changing. So there are a few continuing challenges that we have in terms of the course, and as we kind of reflected this year on teaching it, our evaluations are, we've got a sort of things that we think that have gone well, and we've got things that we think are ongoing challenges for us as we teach it next year. So with our in-sessional support, as Cassie said, these are optional workshops. Our attendance tends to be low for those workshops, but we found that the AI literacy course, which was AI literacy for academic writing, and we found that that was actually the most popular course for students to sign up and to attend. So our numbers were highest on that course compared to any other course, which perhaps reflects students, what students think they want. We found students engaged well with the content of the courses, and we thought that the structure worked really well. And I think the nice thing is that it positioned us not as AI experts, but as academic writing experts. And we're considering the process of academic writing, and we're just looking at AI literacies within that. As you've seen within our workshops, we try to include examples of AI tools, but we don't want to rely on students having to sign up for anything or to use AI themselves if they don't feel that they want to. So there's a bit of a balancing act there of us trying to include things like screenshots, which quite quickly go out of date as the interfaces change or AI tools get updated, and also making sure that students have a chance to play around with it, but without that expectation that they have to sign up or do anything they don't feel that they want to. With all of our in-sessional support, as I said, student numbers tend to be quite low, although this course was relatively well attended, student numbers is an ongoing challenge for us in this course as well as others. And as was previously mentioned, the spectrum of colleagues' views across the university and within the team is our kind of ongoing challenge of making sure we're listening to those and thinking about how we're positioning ourselves and how we're guiding students well without being prescriptive about giving all of the answers. Yeah. So I think our approach has been more to make sure we're helping students to ask the right questions rather than have all the answers. I think that's everything that we had to say. The last slide just contains some of our references. And I don't know if there's time for questions.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, both of you.